Uno de los ejecutivos de marketing más premiados del sector, productor y presentador de The Cleveland Hustlers y autor de Text Me. Él ha encabezado algunas de las campañas de marketing global más grandes de la historia a través de las plataformas digitales, móviles, televisivas, impresas y experienciales, incluyendo el estreno del primer producto alimenticio impreso en 3D, el cual realizó para la marca Oreo en tiempo real durante el evento SXSW. Con el tema Hackonomy, ¿cómo se crea el valor rompiendo cosas? Descubra cómo se puede hackear su negocio, su forma de hacer las cosas y, en última instancia, a usted mismo. Señoras y señores, aquí está Boni Bough.
Wow. Hola, Republica Dominicana. ¿Cómo está mi gente? ¿Cómo está? Bien. I'm excited to be here with you guys today. Hopefully we're going to have a good hour. My dad lives in El Salvador, so I've been spending a lot of time in Central America. But I'm happy to be in the Caribbean, but I'm very excited. So, yes, okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Boni Bough. I'll give you a little bit of my background, but today we're going to talk about Hackonomy. And the idea behind Hackonomy is, how do you create value by breaking things? By the way, if I talk too fast for the translation, somebody just yell at me, and I might slow down. We'll see. To give you a little bit of my background, my last role, actually technically not my last role, but one of my roles was I was Chief Media and E-commerce Officer for a company called Mondelez International. Mondelez is the largest snack food company in the world. We had some of the best brands like Oreos, Wheat Thins, Trident, Stride, Ritz, Triscuits. My job was to buy all of our media across the globe, about $3 billion in media. We were the 7th largest buyer in the world, as well as build our e-commerce business, which I took from $65 to $265 million in the 18 months that I ran it before I left. But my real job was to push our organization to do the things that they didn't even know was possible, to drive our people to change their mindset and drive innovation that would ultimately unlock growth. Before that, I worked at PepsiCo, where I ran digital media globally across all of the brands. Same kind of situation, pushed the organization to move forward beyond what they even thought was possible. Before that, I built 2 global digital agencies. Before that, I was in college, but I also built a digital agency in college. We did the first Jordache website, the first Soccer Hall of Fame website, and then I sold that business. Most recently, to date, I am Chief Growth Officer of Bonin Ventures. And our idea is that we take significant stakes in startup companies and we help them connect with large organizations and help those organizations drive growth through our startups. Right before that, after leaving Mondelez, I actually ended up going to a beauty business where I took that beauty business from about $200 million to $300 million, and we just sold to Unilever in December for a little under $1 billion. The thing I've learned across all the stuff that I've done is that growth can only be created when you put yourself into a different mindset. And that's what I'm going to try to walk you guys through today. How do you put yourself into a different mindset to think differently to unlock growth? Growth is not created by doing the exact same thing that you did the day before. It's only created by doing something different, breaking the way that you thought, hacking the way that you thought the day before. I was lucky enough to do a little program with a guy. Anybody know who this guy is, LeBron James? You guys have heard of him, right? What I love about this photo is everybody's like, Bonin, you are so tall. I said, you don't understand. He's sitting. But he's like in a deep squat, like way down, way down. We did a little show where we worked on revitalizing neighborhoods. And it allowed me to work with smaller businesses than what I'm used to. But again, the same mindset. How do you unlock your mind and not do what you did yesterday so that you can create growth for tomorrow? And that's what we did. We took a bagel company. We actually worked with local investors that were willing to invest in entrepreneurs that would create small businesses on Main Street. Because Main Street is what really matters. That's what changes neighborhoods. And we took a bagel company, for example. And this guy, great story, he fell in love with making bagels. He quit his job. He lived across the street from a shared kitchen, which he rented, and he made bagels at 4 a.m. every morning, and he sold those bagels. Eventually, he began to sell more than he could actually produce in that kitchen. So he learned how to freeze bagels. And he asked his friend to borrow his freezer, and he used that freezer, and he sold frozen bagels that tasted almost as good as the fresh ones that he sold. When we met up with him, he wanted to build a bagel store. He wanted to stop living in his car, which I would too. Stop living in his car and create a bagel store. And I said, look, I definitely want to create a bagel store for you. But more importantly, is the frozen bagel market is a $480 million market that hasn't been disrupted in forever. There were two players, Lenders and Thomas's. And I said, why wouldn't we think about going to the frozen bagel business? His mind was so focused on creating a bagel store that he could be proud of, which I love. But we had to reset his mind to say, wait a second, there could be a bigger opportunity. And that's what I hope you take away from me today, is how do you reset your mind to think about exponential growth? What's going to take your organization from where they are today to super far than even your 5-year plan thought was humanly possible? I wrote a book called Text Me, similar story. Text Me is supposed to be the Freakonomics of the mobile generation, and it looks at the untalked about and undiscussed impact that mobile's had on every single aspect of life, from dating to religion to parenting to memory and more. And it's 120 interviews with everybody from Pharrell to Dick Costello, who at the time was the CEO of Twitter, to Peter Guber, who's the owner of the Dodgers and the Warriors, and everybody, Deepak Chopra, and people in between. When I originally started to decide to write a book, I said, I want to find a publisher who's going to work with me to transform publishing. I'm not going to do a book unless we can change publishing. And I found a publisher who said, Bonin, we also want to change publishing. I said, great. And originally the book was supposed to be called Digilance. Digilance. Supposed to be this big book, Digilance, like Freakonomics, Digilance. But I was sitting, after we had gotten close to finishing the book, I was sitting inside of a coffee shop with the researcher, and I realized that I hadn't talked to enough people, because the impact that this mobile device has had on humanity is much bigger than 120 people can express. And I said, I want to talk to more people, and I want to write a living book. So we decided we're going to put my phone number on the cover of the book. I was so excited, I ran back to the publisher and said, guess what? We're going to put my number on the cover of the book. We're going to change the title from Digilance to Text Me with my number on the cover. And they said, get out of our office. We're not going to do that. We didn't want to change publishing. We lied to you. The sad thing is they couldn't get their headset out of what was traditionally considered a big book. To me, a big book was something that could have longevity, not just be a New York Times bestseller, but allow me to text with what I do today, 50,000 people. You can text the number right now. It'll come to me right now. In fact, if you do text it and you put in FOA, clicker? No? Clicker? Maybe? Am I too far away from the clicker zone? Sorry. There we go. Oops. If you do text it, +1 646 759 1837. I'd love every single one of you to text it. I will give you a free book, but more importantly, we will begin a journey of conversation, and hopefully some of the things that I talk about today, we can continue to talk about moving forward. And I will try my best to respond in Spanish. Or I'll get my 90-year-old dad who lives in El Salvador to try his best to respond in Spanish. But our journey today begins in the 1950s. If you were a marketer in the 1950s, and I came into your office and I said, look, Again, let's think about mindset change. And I said, look, I want you to invest in this thing. Whoa. I want you. Is that too loud? You guys want to? Okay, fine. I'm going to be loud. Is that? Okay, good. You guys know what you're doing. I want you to invest in this thing called television. You say, you know what? I want you to get out of my office. Clearly, I get kicked out of offices a lot. I don't need your stinking television because I have this thing called radio. Radio. Why would I need television? Radio works just fine for me. But 3 bold brands, P&G, Unilever, and Kraft. I feel myself buzzing. People are texting. The number will stay on the screen. Keep texting. P&G, Unilever, and Kraft decided to invest in television because what they saw was that consumer consumption of TV began to eclipse where investment was. And it's in these deltas where consumers change that we create opportunity for growth. And I would argue that the exact same thing exists today, except it happens to deal with what you guys are doing right now, texting me, mobility. In fact, 40% of media is consumed on a mobile device, but still less than 10% of spending actually goes into mobility, which means that the boardrooms of most organizations look something like this, where there's somebody, where there's somebody in the front that says, you know what, I think we may need a mobile strategy. And then somebody looks up from their device, very distracted, and says, I'm sorry, but did you say something? But what I love about humans is we'll never admit that we are distracted. No. We'll tell you, keep talking to me while I'm texting because I'm doing something that I call multitasking. Right? How many of you have heard that? Raise your hand. How many of you have heard that? I'm a multitasker. How many of you have heard that? I can multitask. But in reality, what they're doing is they are lying to you. There was a study that was done by the American Psychiatric Association. And they took 2 groups. They asked one to use their mobile phone, text, and multitask. And they asked the second group to smoke marijuana. I know what group some of you were in. He knows. And there was a 10-point drop in the IQ of those that use mobile phones to multitask, which was twice as much as those that smoke marijuana. So if you take anything away from me today, it's this: you're better off being a pothead than pretending that you can multitask. But still, in the face of these glaring results, I get the same question. Bonin, are mobile phones at scale? We understand television, but this mobile thing, is it at scale? So I said, oh my God, it's such a good question. So I did a little bit of research. It turns out there are, sorry, the clicker's weird. Turns out there are 7 billion people on Earth, 5.1 billion own a cell phone and text, but only 4.2 billion own a toothbrush. I hope you're clapping because you own a toothbrush and not because you're in that camp that doesn't own a toothbrush. But it means 2 things. One, 1 billion people didn't get the text message on the importance of hygiene, clearly. But it also means that if we believe toothbrushes are at scale, then maybe mobile phones are as well. But I got another question. They said, okay, great, but we want to reach a younger generation. Tell us about the millennials, Bonin. What do the millennials do? We like these millennials. The millennials are going to drive our business. What's the millennial behavior? So we did some more research. It turns out that they're doing a little better. 96% own a cell phone and text, 93% own a toothbrush, but only 90% use deodorant. 10%, which is a lot, people, of an entire generation smell. They might be sitting next to you, so be careful. Be careful. I love this next slide. It says, honk if you love Jesus, text while driving if you want to meet him. Even our religious institutions understand the importance of mobility. But yet, I'm sure as you sit here today, many of the companies that you work for or the organizations that you represent or own are not using mobile to its full potential. How many people in here have ever thought that their phone was vibrating, but when they reached in their pocket to check it, they realized that it wasn't? Raise your hand! It should be every single one of you. If not, you are also lying to me again. In fact, it is a disease called phantom vibration syndrome. They say people who experience it have something vaguely similar to what meth addicts go through. Meth addicts. Other studies actually show that using your mobile phone and messaging is as addictive as cocaine. So there's somebody in a dark alley going, oh my God, please, just send me a text message. I just need a text message, please. Just send me an emoji or a bitmoji or a Giphy. I'm fiending, please send me something. And while we're strung out on this thing called mobility, which again, many organizations are taking advantage of, we're forgetting the impact that it's having on society at large. Please, yes, text in. I'll read some of them and come back. When we released the book, I needed to test the technology. You can't text with multiple people just using iMessage, so we had to test the technology. So we released it at South by Southwest to test it with the most cynical people on planet Earth. I don't know why I did that. The very first question that we asked people was, what's the last thing that you look at before you go to bed? Your partner or your cell phone? 80% of people, of course, said their cell phone. One guy was so mad at me. He said, Bonin, I hate you so much. I don't know if he really yelled that. It was like exclamation, 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 which I took as, Bonin, I hate you so much. Now I have to make it a point to look at my partner before I go to bed instead of my cell phone. I said, you know what, dude, you're welcome for the dating advice, first of all, and text back yes because I auto-bill. You guys know that. It's interesting, a younger generation talked to us about how it's transforming relationships and their dating life. Women, millennials, said that they love platforms like Tinder because it allows them to not be preyed upon. They feel very secure in those platforms because it's a double opt-in. Men said they also love these platforms because they no longer have to be afraid of being rejected. I said, you know what? I've spent my life being rejected. It builds character, you stupid millennials. Anyway, sorry, no, I apologize. Oh, it's also changed parenting. Just somebody shout out, you can shout out in Spanish if you want to. What's the average age that you would give a kid a cell phone? Shout out some numbers. 12? Somebody said 12. Who said 12? Over here? Somebody? Okay, boom, 12. FOA is going to give you a gift. I don't know what it is, but they're going to give you something. Okay, so 12. 12 happened to be the average age. Just make sure you get your gift. Somebody in the back, let's work on that. 9. I said I want to give my kid a cell phone from the moment they're born. Like, here, make yourself smarter. Do something with your life. Be somebody. 12 was the average age. The most interesting thing was parents talked to us about the removal of hierarchy. There used to be a time when you could tell your kid, you know, you're driving in the car, and they're like, Dad, why is the sky blue? You're having a bad day. You could care less. The sky, why is it blue? And you're like, you know why? Because I say it so. It's blue. Now they're like, well, that's weird because Google has a totally different answer. Or you're like, look, little Johnny, I don't care what Bonin says, do not smoke marijuana. Well, that's strange because your college roommate just put photos of you doing bong hits on Facebook, and you turned out okay. So there's a removal of hierarchy, or the death of rebellion. When I was young, I used to be able to say, Mom, I'm going to little Johnny's house. And she didn't know what I did in between. As long as I got there at a reasonable time, I could do pretty much anything I wanted in between. But now, they literally have a GPS in their pocket. which tracks them every single day, every single minute. Carolyn Everson, the number 3 at Facebook, said, I can't wait until I can put a chip in my twin daughters' heads so I know where they are every moment of the day. I was like, you are a psycho woman, by the way, which explains why you're selling our data to Russia. Anyway, but I'm glad I'm not your daughter. Yeah, somebody's like, yes, I love it, sell more data to Russia. Or think about this. When I went to college, I communicated with my parents maybe once a week, if I was lucky, right? Or unlucky, depends on the relationship you have with your parents. But now there's a continual communication with parent and kid. And if this was supposed to be the moment in time when you left your parental unit and you became the human you were going to be in life, does that still exist? Is that still possible? What happens to that transitional period? Many changes. The other thing we found interesting is that it turns out that 80% of newborn babies have their photo up on Facebook or social within the first hour of their birth. So the very first thing they see is dad there sitting with the iPhone or the Android, depends on your operating system or your level of income. No, I'm joking. Anyway, so they're like, okay, can you smile? And the baby's like, no, I can't smile. I'm being born. Can we do this later? But what it also taught me, and we're going to go back to this, changing your mindset, deltas. 20% of babies don't have their photos up within the first hour. So I thought to myself, oh my God, there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity, 20%, that's big, I like that. There's an opportunity. So ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Nelfie, the newborn selfie. No child left behind, people. We can do this. We have the power. We can make birth great again. We can do it. We've also turned pee time into me time. We ask people, what's the thing you hate most about your phone? They say, you know what I hate most? I hate taking it to the bathroom with me. El baño. La baño? Am I wrong? I don't. Okay. People are correcting my Spanish. I'm trying my hardest up here. I said, you know what I hate? You know what I hate? I hate that you're telling me you're taking it to El baño with you. I'm a perfect stranger. Why are you telling me this? This is ruining my day. And not to mention, I'm texting you from the stall. So, oh shoot, the slide progressed. I apologize. Anyway, we've created these social constructs around what's right and what's wrong with this device. And then we've also stopped ourselves from, or we now challenge those social constructs because we want to use these devices because they're that addictive. There's a joke here, and I apologize, the slide advanced ahead. But with all this time spent in bathrooms, I thought to myself again, there's this delta of opportunity. Consumer behavior has shifted. So I give you charging stations and stalls, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big idea. It's an Uber-sized idea. Whoever's with me, come find me at lunch. Let's do this together. But this all brings me back to one thing, which is, for the first time ever, we have entered into a true world where we have a unique opportunity to communicate with consumers. You're going to hear me talk about two things, really, which is how do you change your mindset to where consumers are going? How do you break what you did yesterday to reinvent tomorrow? And how do you think, if I can leave you with one thing, that the power of the messaging platforms that have emerged are huge. WhatsApp, the dominant here. Text message, the dominant in the US, WeChat, China. The platforms, what I've learned is that they're massively personal. And I'm going to try to talk very slowly so the translators can capture this. So I text with over 50,000 people. Some of you in this room now, hopefully more of you in this room. Please, text again. You will get the book. The book is spectacular, if I may say so myself. But the one thing I've learned is that we have the first time ever in human history the chance to connect with people on a personal level. We thought that social media was going to be this personal thing, but it wasn't. It really became a place where we broadcast our other self. If you look at the post that Kanye West just did, he said, "I wish we could remove likes because likes have become this weird currency of humanity that probably doesn't need to exist." So when somebody texts me, I don't know who it is. So any of you who just texted me, I have no clue who you are. I don't know who you are. A number comes in. Am I too close to the mic? A number comes in, that's all I know, so it's a number. And then nobody knows what to say, like I gave you guys, say FOA to get the free book, but nobody knows what to say. So they'll say things like, "Hey." I'll be like, "Hey back." I don't got time for this. I got 50,000 people I'm having real conversations with. You start off with, "Hey," that's your intro? Or "Hi." Hi back. That's, I mean, what, I don't have, so here's a person, text me, "Hi." So I write, "Hi back." Took you long enough for a number found on the title of a textbook. I thought I'd get a response much sooner. LOL. Gotta put LOL so you know I'm being jovial. You gotta understand, I wrote an entire book called Text Me about text messaging. I think I know what the definition of LOL is, but thank you for pointing that out to me. Thank you for making my day. I mean, it's not a textbook, it's a all the messages are coming in, thank you people. I mean, it's a textbook, it's not a textbook, it's a marketing book. You should get an autoresponder for this number. I said, yeah, didn't want to do an autoresponder because I didn't feel like it was genuine, but did you read the book? You guys will get an autorespond so I can give you free books, but this is a different point in time. No, she writes, or they write, I was browsing the section where the book was and curiosity kicked in. Well, I'm glad you're curious enough to text, but I must say it's a good book if you ever have a chance to read it. LOL. Boom, right back at you. There's my LOL, people. Boom. I'll give it a look over next time I'm in Barnes, which apparently is abbreviation for Barnes & Nobles, although I thought it's nothing because they're not going to be in business. Anyway, I'll give it a look over next time I'm in Barnes. I don't even know what it's about. I just thought it would be interesting to see what happens if I text the number. It's about mobile culture. Think Freakonomics of the mobile generation. Looks at the undiscussed and not talked about impact that mobile's had on every aspect of life, from dating to religion to memory and more. Ha ha ha. Speak of dating, definitely ruined my last relationship. I was a texter, he was a caller, we were doomed from the start. LOL. Like, I don't know, well, do you know what the real definition of LOL? That doesn't sound like a laugh out loud matter to me. Fine, we'll take what we can get. Do tell me more. Actually, the book is interviews from 120 people, and I decided to put my number so I could talk to people about how it's changing their lives. Did you guys meet on a dating app? No. We were college sweethearts. So how did the phone bring on what you seem to think was the inevitable? I find that because I text so much, I have a hard time articulating myself on my feet. You can't Google the definition of a word mid-conversation to make sure you're using it correctly. You can't take too long to respond, or people will perceive you as not too bright. You can't edit your words mid-conversation. My ex is a life coach, motivational speaker, soon-to-be author, Marine, and has the charisma of a politician. Communicating with him is a struggle for me. I even have panic attacks when I need to communicate anything serious to him. So now I'm like, whoa, a lot of information. Can we go back to LOL? Like, that's the area that I'm comfortable, the LOL area. She writes, me, I'm just your average receptionist with dreams of being an entrepreneur, but no ideas of how to materialize them or where to start. So I write back, wait, sounds like you're very perceptive and self-aware, so I'm sure you're a rock star. Maybe it was not you who had a hard time communicating. Maybe he was just so used to speaking that he didn't know how to listen. Come on, guys, that's good stuff, come on. I'm a dude to put a number on the cover of the book. This is above my pay grade on so many levels. I write back, what's the idea that you want to do as an entrepreneur? She never writes back, so clearly not an entrepreneur. But what I found vastly interesting, and I've had interactions like that across the globe, some folks, by the way, those that are saying thank you for coming to Dominican Republic, thank you, or Republica Dominicana, thank you for texting that in, thank you very much, that means a lot. I've had many of those interactions, but what it's made me realize was that we have now a true opportunity to have personal relationships with consumers on a level that was never ever possible before. And the true dream, and I've been in digital for over 20 years, since 1990, actually 96, I guess, when the internet was at very infancy, we now for the first time ever can live the dream of connecting with consumers on a level that we never, ever, ever thought was possible. So that all made me think to myself, okay, if we have this new opportunity, who's going to teach us how to take advantage of it? Well, oddly, it's not going to be the organizations that we're used to. So organizations like our school system. So the descriptions of the top 100, the course descriptions of the top 100 business schools don't say anything about mobile, emerging, or digital technology. So the institutions that are supposed to teach leaders of a new generation are failing us. So that's not going to happen. And then when we walk inside of large organizations, those organizations say to us, you know what? We want innovation. We want change. But then when you try to do that, they stomp it out. They're like, kill the innovation, get the innovation, kill the change, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. What they really want is incrementality. Nobody ever gets fired for just doing a little bit more. But when you try to do something dramatic, that's when the pain sets in. That's when life becomes a little harder. But if you can get it done, that's when growth actually happens, and that's what we're going to talk about. So I began to ask myself, well, where can we learn how to think different? So I began to look at institutions. Turns out the old institutions have not been able to create growth, but the new ones have, in shorter periods of time. So I decided to study those new institutions, those new organizations, and ask myself, what was it that allowed them to create growth? Turns out that it has nothing to do with time. Doesn't have anything to do with the amount of time that you've been around. In 4 months, a company like Mailbox was able to create $100 million in value. It also has nothing to do with the number of people that you have. 13 people created Instagram that was bought for $1 billion. Nothing to do with the number of people. It also has nothing to do with the industry. Slide. Slide. It has nothing to do with the industry. So industries, even the most industrial industry, is being revolutionized by platforms like MakerBot, for example. Nothing to do with the industry. It also has nothing to do with the geography. Slide. Is it me or? It has nothing to do with geography. So there are over 100 places that look something like Silicon Valley, Silicon Alley, Silicon Lane, Silicon Beach, Silicon Forest, Silicon City. You're like, with all this intelligence, can you come up with a better name than just Silicon something? Please, people. Use some intelligence. It also, oddly, has nothing to do with age. So all these kids have one thing in common. They're all founders. The person on your far left, he created an app, 12 years old. He created an app called Bustin' Jeeber. Bustin' Jeeber. You guys laugh, but he gave a TED Talk. I'm here in Republica Dominicana talking to you guys so you can see where my career is at. No. It also has nothing to do with education. So Peter Thiel is literally paying kids to drop out of college. And I want you to think about the mindset that he's trying to put people in. He's paying kids to drop out of college because he believes he can create greater value than even the institutions that were built to train the next generation. And he might be right. When you actually look, the best entrepreneurs dropped out of college in sophomore year. Zuckerberg, Sergey from Google, Jobs, Gates, all dropped out of college. In fact, Karp dropped out of high school. He didn't even have a high school diploma, and he sold Tumblr for $1 billion. Now I know what you're saying. Look, Bonin, Marissa Mayer was desperate. And anybody in here from Yahoo? No? Okay, you're probably right, she was desperate. My point is that maybe the mindset that our organizations ask us to think about, which is looking backwards, which is let's review what's happened historically, is the wrong way to think, and maybe that doesn't build an entrepreneurial mindset. So I begin to ask myself, what is it? Please, somebody tell me, what is it? Why have these organizations been able to create greater value than many of the organizations that we work in today? In fact, if you look at the numbers of CPG companies, and I belong to the biggest in the world, flat is the new up. Just don't let me lose money, and I'm successful. How's that a thing? How's that a thing? So I believe that what drives these companies is this mindset of being a hacker, of breaking what you did yesterday to reinvent tomorrow. If you ever go into the Facebook offices, outside of them selling your data, you will also see that they have signs that say, the journey is only 1% complete. And you're like, God damn it, you guys own everything. What do you mean you only have 1%? You own everything. But even the janitor believes that. The janitor's like, I'm only 1% done. I'm only 1% done. I gotta keep going. And what it means is that tomorrow is so much greater than yesterday. What's ahead of us is so much bigger than what was behind us. And they believe in this hacker mentality. How do you break yourself? How do you break process? How do you break your organizations? More importantly, how do you break the thinking that you did yesterday to reinvent tomorrow? And if you think about Facebook, it is a platform that's constantly reinvented. Just the platform itself, you reinvent it every single day. It's different. Your feed is different every single day. So just conceptually as a platform. And that's what we talk about. We talk about Hackonomy. How do you create value by breaking things? Yourself, your process, your organization, so that you can reinvent a better tomorrow. How do you put yourself in a mindset that allows you to realize that what you did yesterday is meaningless, what you do tomorrow is the most important, and how do you think different about tomorrow? And some of the best things have been created by hacks. So the like button was created in 48 hours during a hackathon. Or here's a company called Open Airplane that believes that they can reinvent the airline industry. They want to be the Uber of airlines. Now look, I fly all the time, and I'm never like, oh, my airline's 5 minutes away. Let me go jump on that plane. So my point is, not every idea will work, but at least they're challenging convention. At least they're challenging the notion of what it means to be an airline company. Here's a guy named Stellog, who's challenging humanity. I want you to take a look. In his arm, he's got a 3D printed ear. Crazy on so many levels, by the way. In that ear, he's got a microphone, a Bluetooth microphone. So when his phone rings, he literally answers it by talking into his ear. Hello, hello, can you hear me now? You get it, hear, ear? No, that joke never lands. Anyway, never works, never works. But he's challenging humanity. What does it mean? Why do we have to talk just with our mouths? Why can't our ears be? Here's another guy, Hugh Hare, who's challenging humanity for maybe a better reason. I definitely implore you to watch his TED Talk. Hugh Hare's story is really simple. At 17 years old, he was considered one of the world's top mountain climbers. He was climbing. He got caught in a blizzard. His best friend died. He lost both of his legs. A week after he came back from getting his prosthetics, his brother, seeing how much he needed to climb again, how much that fulfilled him, decided to take him out climbing. And as he was climbing with his prosthetics, he chipped one of the toes on his fake limb. But he realized that he could actually climb better with that chipped toe. So he went back and he began to hack his prosthetics. until he could climb better with his prosthetic limbs than he could with his own human limbs. And at that point, he decided that he was going to dedicate himself from turning disability into ability. He was a D student. Now he is a doctorate at MIT and considered the world's first bionic. The bionic limbs that he created, he believes he can get down to $3,000. With those limbs, he can run, he can jump, he push down and they push back just like real limbs do. He's going to transform prosthetics forever by challenging himself and asking that question, what we had yesterday does not determine what we can create tomorrow. But I was speaking in London, and I spoke before him, and I realized two things. One, everything I was saying was meaningless because this guy's like changing lives. I'm here yelling at people about a book I wrote. But two, something really interesting. Somebody asked a question in the audience. They said, do you ever see a world where somebody would opt to have a bionic limb over a real limb? He said, well, let me answer it this way. If your 73-year-old arthritic arm didn't operate like your 18-year-old one did, and there were no complications, what decision would you make? And there was a hush over the crowd like this, because at that moment in time, we realized that we might become more bionic, more computer than we even are human. And this idea of the singularity, where there's a rupture in the fabric of human evolution, might actually come true. Might actually come true. So it made me start to think, if we can transform humanity, then we can transform the way that we connect with consumers. And so the next 20 minutes, I'm going to go through case studies and try to put you in a mindset of how to think about that. But more than just how to think about it, to show you that it's possible, that I've actually done it inside of organizations, large organizations, small organizations, that we truly can unlock growth. But it only happens if you forget what you did yesterday and try to dream about what you can do tomorrow. That's the only way that it happens. So I asked myself, okay, how do we hack media? Here's a little model that we created to drive ourselves. One is rethink mobility. Mobile is not just a channel, it's actually a utility that we use every single day. How do we, as organizations, create that same type of utility that somebody wants to use every single day? Real-time engagement. How do we connect with consumers in real time? And it's not just about a Facebook post, but how do we actually create an organization that can take an engagement that's happening in real time and turn that into a product or service that you can sell on the other end? So how do we transform supply chains? How do we rethink research and development, product development? How do we monetize media? How do we go from buying media to owning media? How do we truly become publishers? Everybody talks about, I'm a publisher, I'm a publisher. But really all they are people who can afford to put their logo really big in places. Because true publishers get paid for the content they create, either through attention or through actual cash, which holds them to a greater standard. How do we hold ourselves to a greater standard, changing the quality of what we actually create and put into the world? Aspirations versus allocations. It's one thing to aspire to be something. It's another thing to allocate the right resources. So ask yourself, are you allocating the right time, the right dollars? I can say, I want to be fit. Clearly I'm not, because I haven't allocated enough time to go to the gym. How do you allocate? TV versus video. Talking to the teams here, they were like, TV is still the most important medium. And I get that. But the reality is consumers don't care. They watch TV, they watch video, it's all the same. How do we believe that moving images are one platform, and how do we deliver against that total? And culture versus cluster. There used to be a time when we were buying audiences based on basic demographics, 18 to 34-year-old women. But the reality is, they're all different. They're all different. They have different interests, different things that shape the culture of who they are. And now, for the first time ever, we've had access to data, true data, that allows us to buy cultural demographics versus base demographics. So how do we take those into account? So I said aspirations versus allocations. When I went to Mondelez, one of the first things I wanted to do was I wanted to turn us into the #1 mobile marketer in the world. So in order to do that, that was my aspiration. I had to allocate. My aspiration needed allocation. So I said, we're going to spend 10% of all of our media money into mobility. This is 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So we basically became the largest mobile spender. And guess what? We became the #1 mobile marketer in the world. And I got a cover story out of it, so there's other benefits, people. No, but we became the #1 mobile marketer in the world. I actually moved us from 3% spending in digital to 32% spending in digital by the time I left. I added $2 billion of top-line net revenue attributable just to the shift, and $300 million of savings to the bottom line. Changes to move where the consumer goes, whether it's charging stations and stalls, or it's Nel fees, these things have real business impact. I also needed to train us. I needed to train us, 1 minute left? Okay. Wow, okay. Okay. All right, we're gonna go really quick, and I'm gonna end with one case study because I think the timing was a little off. Okay, so I also had to train us. So I had to get us to think differently about how we engage with consumers. So very quickly, I had to move us into Facebook. And so what we did was I took a platform, a brand called Nilla Wafers, and I introduced us into Facebook by giving us real-time ads. So I took 5 different types of creative, and we based which creative to use based on what consumers were engaging in. And so the one that won was this one. The best families are like fudge, mostly sweet with lots of nuts. And then we moved on from there to, from there to identifying that if we put images on the creative that we could drive even greater engagement. So good moms let you lick the beaters, great moms turn them off, and so on and so forth. But we were able to move a brand, $620,000 spend, we were able to move a $140 million business by 9%. I would just give
a little brought to you by.
I'm gonna skip all these. Sorry. Oh God, come on, guys, kill me here. All right, we're gonna show 2. I'm gonna close on the Oreo case study to make sure you guys see that, and I'm gonna show this one case. One of the big things that I did right before I left was I wanted to reinvent how we thought about messaging and owning media. So I decided that I was going to drop a guy out. Here's what happened. 3.5 years before the stunt actually happened, somebody came to me and they said, Bonin, we want to drop a guy out of the sky with no parachute, no wingsuit. Will you do that? I said, yes. Bonin will do that. So I went back to Mondelez and I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. They said, no, you are definitely not going to do that. So it took me 3.5 years to get this over the finish line, but we eventually did it. And we dropped the guy out of the sky with no parachute on, no wingsuit from 25,000 feet, and here's the video for it.
We're going to land in that net going 120 miles an hour with some of my best friends in the world. It's incredible. I can't wait to do it.
Luke Akins will be attempting to make the most dangerous skydiving stunt ever performed from nearly 5 miles up.
Get clearance. He ended up landing. So if you look at how that jump was, the net was 100 by 100 feet. He would do 86 test jumps he did, and every single time he would pull the chute before he landed, so he had never done the full stunt, but he would land dead center, 50-50. The one time that it mattered, he landed 30 feet off of the mark and 20 feet away from probably the worst death on the planet Earth, and Bonin losing his job. So I was like, look, Luke, we need to focus. But we dropped that. Everybody told me it wasn't possible, and we did it, and we actually made $9 million off that stunt. Hey, guys in the back, I don't know what the timing is, but I can close if you give me 3 minutes. Here, I'll take you guys through the last thing. So, Oreo story. Oreo story is really simple. Sorry, this clicker is like... Oreo story is really simple. Most people don't think about Oreo as a brand that was about to become irrelevant. And the last thing I want to leave you with is that if you change your mindset and you change your state, you can actually transform your business. So the problem that Oreo had was that nobody ever reinvented the commercial. So Oreo was always O-R-E-O, Nabisco, for 45 years. As a result, the brand became pretty irrelevant to consumers, especially a millennial consumer, because if you were not 6 to 12 or you didn't own 6 to 12-year-olds, it really didn't matter to you. So you can own them, I think. So we had to expand the brand and go much deeper and wider. And we started off with something very basic, which was a Facebook post. And I'll never forget, I walked in and I was like, no, I don't want to work on Oreo, it sucks. And the very first meeting, there was an ad that was on white and it had a quarter of a cookie and it looked like a shark swimming through Oreo, and it said Jaws, whatever the age was. And then there was one next to it that had a open cookie with a boot print on it, and it said the moon landing, whatever date that was, 1964 or whatever. And I thought to myself, that's really interesting. A week later, I was in London, and Facebook had just announced Timeline. It was our 100-year anniversary, so I called the creative agency. I said, look, I have an amazing idea. We should do a timeline, 100 years for Oreo, and we should fill in a few of them with posts that look something like this so that people would get what we want them to do, and we'll leave a bunch of them open and let them fill it in. And the creative agency was like, worst idea ever. I was like, wait a second, you do know I pay you guys. Can't tell me that. They said instead, for the next 100 days, we're going to do a post that's relevant to what's happening in culture. So I agreed. The very first post we did happened on a Sunday, and it happened to be Pride Day, June 25th. And so we put this up. The next day, Colbert came out and was like, Oreos are gay. This post spread everywhere, became the #1 like post in the history of Facebook. You can imagine, senior leadership was like, Bonin, what did you do? By the end of the week, it was lauded as some of the best marketing that had been done. And they were like, we knew it was amazing the very first time we saw it. I was like, well, that's weird, because that's not the conversation I remember. But it gave us the courage to then launch this, which was the first, when the lights went out at the Super Bowl, we launched Dunk in the Dark. Tweet heard around the world. 4 minutes later, we launched You Can Still Dunk in the Dark. I pushed us to buy Super Bowl. I don't even remember what that ad was, but everybody remembers this. But then that gave us the courage to actually transform, for the first time in 45 years, the actual advertisement of Oreo.
Wonder if I gave an Oreo to the big bad wolf, how would the story go? Would he still go huff and puff, or would he bring those pigs cool stuff to decorate the deck he helped them build? Would they not get killed? Wonder if I gave an
Thank you. Thank you. Clearly, much more interesting. We were able to launch this around the world. We brought in different types of artists. We recorded the song in different ways. It allowed us to have an animation platform where we can share much more millennial. As a result, we grew the brand 22%. But that then led to us doing one of my favorite projects, which was, for the first time ever, the 3D printed Oreo. Oh, this is like, can we go? Sorry, guys.
What would happen if an Oreo cookie you hold in your hand were a part of the social network? Oreo, the world's favorite cookie for over 100 years, dared to wonder about and envision the future of snacking distribution. So they conducted an experiment to bring this to life, tapping into the immediacy and spontaneity of social media to create custom, real-time snacks. The test kitchen was South by Southwest Interactive 2014 in Austin, Texas, where Oreo unveiled a new experimental technology called trending vending. They developed proprietary 3D printers that built custom cookies based on trending social conversations, allowing visitors to select, make, and taste cookies in real time. Twitter-powered algorithms turned each topic into unique Oreo inventions that visitors could further customize to match their mood right at that exact moment. Between all the various cream flavors, colors, patterns, and wafers, over 16,000 delicious custom Oreo cookie variations were possible. And yes, they all tasted like the cookies Oreo fans know and love, truly bringing the wonder-filled experience to life. 10,000 Oreo lovers waited in line for upwards of 2 hours for the chance to create their very own cookies and be a part of the experiment. Then they shared their experiences with the world. Feedback was enthusiastic and immediate, inspiring others to take part in this one-of-a-kind experience. The trending vending activation propelled one of the largest spikes in Oreo social conversation and media attention since the Dunk in the Dark tweet of the 2013 Super Bowl. Oreo saw the highest Twitter engagement at South by Southwest among comparable food and snacking brand activations. Trending vending epitomized the iconic Oreo wonder-filled brand experience, triggering the imagination and curiosity of the media with overwhelming and positive results. Following the success of the activation, Oreo is now taking the trending vending machines on the road. Imagine a future where you could make custom snacks locally in your own backyard, fresh, on demand, and wonder-filled. Now that would taste pretty good.
Right? First of all, thank you! All right, we got one last thing and then we're gonna close. First of all, I think that was the fastest narrated video I've ever heard. Okay, so what was amazing about that was that, first of all, everybody told me, again, the head of, it's not gonna be big. I said, no. What we're gonna do is we're gonna test if personalization for this brand can work. The head of supply chain happened to be at South by watching people stand online for 2 hours to wait for an Oreo. He could not believe that this was possible. He said, Bonin, let's do this en masse. I said, John, I hate you. Because it meant that I now had to take on e-com, because that was the only way we were gonna be able to deliver it. We took on e-com. There was a lot of bureaucracy, but we ended up with 2 months before the holiday season. And I said, I want to launch personalized Oreos. We got to get it done. And we're sitting inside of a room, and everybody in the room is saying why it can't be done. Why the timeline is too short, we will never be able to create cookies, da-da-da-da. And the head of supply chain slammed his hand on the table and said, everybody who doesn't believe it can be done, leave. Everybody left. 6 people stayed, like some random procurement guy, some dude in accounting, like, I don't even know, yeah, sure, I'll just hang out here. So we took those 6 people and the one person on my team, 25-year-old woman who ran the project, Lauren, and we stuck them. Philip Morris used to own Oreo, and so there were these conference rooms that were never used that still smelled like cigarette smoke. I don't know so we stuck the team in there. I was like, it might not be healthy, but nobody will bother you. In 2 months, they created the first ever personalized Oreo. So you could choose from multiple versions of this design. You could stretch the design, you could move the design, you could choose hats, you could choose letters, glow, joy. You could color in every single piece of the design. We had to create our own factory, 70 people in Milwaukee. Millions of different versions of Oreo were able to be created. And the team did this in 2 months. We had to create our own printing process. We had to use my credit card to accept payments, which was weird, and I got in a lot of trouble for that. We had to, all the money went back. But anyway, we had to create our own shipping process because we had never done this before. This was the very first time, and everybody told us it was going to fail. And they were right, it failed. It did fail. We sold Oreos for 4 times more than what a base Oreo would be sold for, and it did fail. It did fail. We got the shipping wrong. But when we launched in Brazil, it was a monster. When we launched in China, it drove the crap out of Oreos. So that very first time, that challenge that everybody told us we could fail, we were going to fail, we got over that, and we pushed through, and we were able to create something that eventually became the pillar for building a $1 billion e-com business. We allowed people to personalize every single aspect, which is why I think it really worked out. So if you look up here where it says Happy Holidays, you could write anything. And we had everything from, will you marry me? To, it's a boy. I was like, don't deliver that to the wrong person, please, please. What do you mean it's a boy? I didn't even know we were trying. What is this? But the moral of the story, and hopefully what you take away from today, is that you have to break yourself. You have to break your thinking. You have to break your organization. And what you did yesterday will have no impact on the potential for tomorrow. And so every single day you have to wake up and think, what can I do better tomorrow? How can I change the world again and again and again? How can I create greater opportunity? How can I hack my current situation and do something different and take myself out of my comfort zone? And that's what I try to do every single day, putting my phone number on the cover of a book, creating personalized Oreos, how do you do that? How do you do that? And if you do that, I promise you, you will create growth for your organizations. And so, Alan Kay said the best way to predict the future is to invent it, but Bonin Bough says the best way to predict the future is to hack it. Oh. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and it's been amazing.
Ahora sí, fuerte el aplauso para Bonin Bough. Sin duda, señores, es un gran profesional, un líder indiscutible de la industria. Bueno, y ahora vamos a recibir quien estará acompañando a todos nosotros en el segmento de Q&A. Así que de todos nuestros speakers, ustedes van a tener la oportunidad de hacer todas las preguntas que quieran. Así que vamos a recibir con un fuerte aplauso al periodista digital y comunicador Raúl Vaz.
Buenos días, ¿cómo están? Amazing, Chad.
Thank you.
Señores, qué personaje, ¿no? La energía, ¿a poco no es algo impresionante? I think your energy is quite amazing.
Okay. Un poquito.
Pero la verdad es que para el poco tiempo que nos queda con el señor, porque el señor se tiene que ir, una lástima, hay algo que quisiera preguntarle sobre él, porque lo definen como el gurú del marketing, como un emprendedor. Señores, hoy en día cualquiera se hace llamar un gurú y cualquiera se hace llamar un emprendedor. Pero yo creo que este señor se lo ha ganado. What I'm telling them is that we live in a region in the world where anybody can call themselves a guru or an entrepreneur. But you obviously walk the talk. I mean, you have a book, you have experience, you have a lot of storytelling to tell us. But how would you describe or define yourself as a brand without using the marketing guru or entrepreneur? How do you define yourself? Please sit down.
No,
I think you've earned
okay.
it.
It's okay, I don't mind. Wow. I try to wake up every day and put things into the world that I can be proud of and people can be inspired by.
Okay.
I feel like even today, first of all, it's a harder crowd because it's not English first, so I have to be very cognizant. And I tried to give every single thing that I have this morning. I've had like 3 hours of sleep. And I looked out into the audience and I saw people laughing and I just said, you know what, I just want to inspire them to do something better tomorrow. And so I define myself as trying to just do things that inspire people to. There's such an opportunity at this point in time, this era that we live in, to do amazing things. And I feel like those that have the opportunity in the platform also have an obligation to show what's humanly possible. And so that's kind of the only thing I care about is how do we just do great, amazing things, man.
Do, transmit, and show people amazing things.
Show people. When I was on the client side, my only goal was to do the thing. The industry talks about a lot of, you should do this, you should do that. Very few people actually do that. And with my teams, all I always said was, we should do the things that everybody talks about doing so that we can be the case studies. That Oreo case study, probably still to this day, but became the case study that allowed many marketers around the world to move money into Facebook, you know, Twitter, sorry.
So
I guess my message would just be the opportunity exists, and I would also argue that you have an obligation to do great stuff, you know. If not, why wake up?
So our obligation is to do amazing things.
Amazing things, if not, like, let's just do amazing things. Okay, sorry.
Señores, un aplauso, por favor. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
I know.
that's it.
I read late. Thank you, guys. Enjoy!